How many do we have? Yeah. Members, it's time to come to the chamber so we can make a quorum. Members, please report to the chamber for a quorum.
The House will come to order. Members, our prayer today will be given by Dr. Michael Minot. He is the senior pastor at Hillcrest Baptist Church and is a guest of Representative Rhett Marcus.
Good afternoon. Let's pray together. God, we come in the name of Jesus, just so grateful for who you are. God, thankful for what you have done. And Lord, we praise you for this day. God, thank you for each man and woman that's here today. God, I thank you as our representatives. God, they make decisions, they determine, and God, they seek what is best for our state. And so, God, I pray for wisdom for each one of them. And God, as you have given all of us an opportunity to represent you well, Lord, I pray for our representatives that they serve this state well. And God, again, the decisions that must be made today, Lord, that they will give oversight, and God, they will think through and talk through and discuss in such a way that, God, good resolve comes from each decision. And so, Lord, I just pray your hands upon this session today. And God, that as they walk out, they know that they have done what they have been put in place to do. And God, I thank you that you are the one who puts leaders and representatives in place. And God, we can trust that, and God, we can rest in that. So God, be with them today and bless all that takes place during this session. It's in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Members today pledge allegiance will be led by Lauren Asbell. She is a fifth grader at Alabama Christian Academy. She is the daughter of David and Michelle Asbell.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Speaker, Almond, Baker, Bedsole, Blackshear, Bolton, Boyd, Bracy, Brown, Butler, Carnes, Chestnut, Clark, Klaus, Cole, Collins, Colvin, Crawford, Daniels, Drummond, Dubose, Easterbrook, Ellis, England, Ensler, Estes, Faulkner, Fiddler, Fincher, Fort, Garrett, Gidley, Gavan, Gibbons, Gray, Hall, Hammett, Harbison, Harrison, Hassel, Hill, Hulk, Jones, Hollis, Hulsey, Hurst, Ingram, Jackson, Jones, Keel, Kirkland, Kitchens, Lamb, Lawrence, Lee, Lipscomb, Lomax, Lovern, Marcus, McCampbell, McClammy, Mooney, Morium, Morpee, Morris, Oliver, Paramore, Pascal, Pettis, Plump, Pringle, Rafferty, Ream, Reynolds, Rigsby, Robbins, Robertson, Rogers, Sellers, Sells, Shaver, Shaw, Shed, Shiree, Simpson, Smith, Sorrell, South, Stahagen, Standridge, Starnes, Stringer, Stubbs, Tillman, Travis, Treadaway, Underwood, Wadsworth, Warren, Whit, Wharton, Wilcox, Wood D, Wood R, Woods, Yarborough.
"71 members have answered roll. Quorum is present. The House is ready to transact business. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Lee, Chairman Lovern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that leaves of absence be granted for absent members.
Are there any objections? Hearing no objection, the absent members are excused. The chair further recognizes the gentleman from Lee, Chairman Lovern.
Mr. Speaker, I have a report.
House of Representatives, your Standing Committee on Rules begs leave to report that it has carefully examined the Journal of the House for the 27th legislative day and finds the same to be correct. Signed, Representative Joe Lovern, Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the reading of the journal at length for the 27th legislative day be dispensed with.
Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Chairman Lovern, you're further recognized. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, the Speaker Pro Tem, Mr. Pringle, for the purpose of making announcements.
Mr. Speaker, I have no announcements today. No announcements. I have none. Mr. Speaker, I move that when we adjourn today, we leave the journal open to allow the clerk to complete his paperwork, and we reconvene Thursday, June 1st at 9 a.m., tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Okay, I do have an announcement. There's a Sine Die party today at 5 at the RSA Activity Center by the gentleman, Mr. Speaker, will be hosting the party for us. So today at 5 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pringle. Okay, we heard the motion on the time to reconvene in the morning. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The motion prevails. The chair will now receive reports from standing committees throughout the day. The House is now in position to introduce bills and resolutions.
House Joint Resolution number 248 by Representative Stubbs honoring Caden Slay for being named the Alabama High School Athletic Association Class 5A High Jump Champion. House Joint Resolution number 251 by Representative Warren honoring Mrs. Josephine Viola Walker Walton on her 100th birthday. Senate Joint Resolution number 87 by Senator Orr mourning the death of Mr. Lynn Curry Fowler.
Move for adoption.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? It is adopted.
House Resolution number 252 by Representative Shaw, recognizing the unique and special relationship between the state of Alabama and the nation of Japan.
Move for adoption.
As questions, adoption. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? It is adopted.
Senate Joint Resolution number 89 by Senator Allen, expressing support for investment and development of infrastructure for truck parking.
Move for adoption.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed? It is adopted. Clerk, call first bill.
On page 62 of the calendar, House Bill number 500 by Representative Ingram relating to Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You need nothing? Okay, I didn't know what you called.
Question for the body is adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine. Okay, I am corrected. We have passed the budget, so we have moved into final passage. That doesn't mean the governor signed them. It just means we've passed them, so we'll see. Question for the body is final passage of HB 500. Clerk will unlock the machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 23 ayes, 0 nays, 79 abstentions. HB 500 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 62 of the calendar, House Bill number 511 with substitute by Representative Hassel relating to Montgomery County.
Question for the body is final passage. We got a substitute. HB 511 has a substitute, so the question for the body is passage of the sub. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 21 ayes, 1 nay, 78 abstentions. The sub has been adopted. Question for the body is final passage of HB 511. Clerk will unlock the machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 10 ayes, 1 nay, 87 abstentions. HB 511 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 63 of the calendar, House Bill number 515 with substitute by Representative Lawrence relating to Montgomery County.
Question for the body is adoption of the sub. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 14 ayes, 0 nays. The sub has been adopted. Question for the body is final passage of HB 515. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 14 ayes, 0 nays, 86 abstentions. HB 515 has passed. Clerk, call the next bill.
On page 63 of the calendar, House Bill number 517 by Representative Faulkner relating to Jefferson County.
Question for the body is passage of HB 517. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 17 ayes, 1 nay. HB 517 has passed. Clerk, call the next bill.
On page 63 of the calendar, House Bill number 522 by Representative Ensler relating to Montgomery County.
Clerk, unlock the machine, record the votes. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 13 ayes, 0 nays. HB 522 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 62 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 74 by Senator Allen relating to the city of Lakeview.
Question for the body's passage of SB 74. Clerk will unlock the machines and members will vote. Clerk will lock machines, record the votes. 7 ayes, 1 nay. SB 74 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 62 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 274 by Senator Figures relating to the city of Spanish Fort.
Question for the body's final passage of SB 274. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record votes. 11 ayes, 0 nays. 274 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 63 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 302 with amendments by Senator Wagner relating to Jefferson County.
Question for the body's adoption of the First Amendment. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machines, record the votes. 22 ayes, 0 nays. First Amendment has been adopted. Question for the body is the Second Amendment on the bill. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 26 ayes, 0 nays. The Second Amendment has been adopted. Question for the body is the passage of SB 302 as amended. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 30 ayes, 1 nay. SB 302 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 61 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 303 by Senator Melson relating to Lauderdale County.
Question for the body is passage of SB 303. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 7 ayes, 0 nays. SB 303 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 61 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 325 by Senator Carnley relating to Coffee County.
Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 10 ayes, 0 nays. SB 325 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 61 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 334 by Senator Albritton relating to the city of Atmore.
Question for the body is final passage of SB 334. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 12 ayes, 0 nays. SB 334 has passed. Sure, I'd like to recognize the gentleman from the lounge, Representative Lawrence, for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. At this time, I would ask for a moment of personal privilege. First, I would like for all of my Montgomery County Legislative Delegation colleagues to come up, please. I just wanted to take this time to kind of recognize one of our colleagues here in this chamber today. Representative Philip Ensler lost his father on Monday, so I would just ask for a moment of silence for him, please. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank the gentleman. The chair recognizes a lady from Jefferson, Representative Van, for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have contemplated rising, and I only have just 1 minute, but I want to address those individuals. I've been reached out to by many individuals the course of the past few weeks who have battled with substance abuse. There was an accusation made against me for which there was never a public apology made. And words do matter, and we fight hard in this chamber and things that we say in this chamber, but I want to say to those individuals who do battle with substance abuse, I do not take that type of conversation lightly. Many organizations have reached out to me. I do not struggle with substance abuse. But for those that do, there are folks that are listening. There is help and there is treatment. And mental abuse is a serious issue in our community. Although a public apology was never given to me, I say to those individuals, seek help. And I also say to those individuals that there are members in this chamber who feel the same way that I feel because they have reached out to me since those public comments were made. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to say to you, Mr. Speaker, and you and I have had this conversation. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak as well as to say just what I said to those individuals who have reached out to me. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, we are winding down, but what I want to put on the hearts of this body for next year, you know, every year I'll bring forth Medicaid expansion. And that's something that we know at least 300,000 people, a little over, in this state need some kind of help with getting some type of insurance to manage their health. You know, so many people, and we know people who probably need to be seeing a doctor today, but they won't because they can't afford health insurance. So I just want to put on your heart on that one particular bill. If nothing else, Mr. Speaker, if we could put together a committee to look at it and see what form or how much we could do toward Medicaid expansion, because the citizens of Alabama really deserve it. And that's something that this body could do, but I think we have to do it by working together to get it done. The other thing that I've heard so much on this weekend is about the number of people that die by gun death. And I know my bill that talks only about weapons of war. And why is it necessary that we should have so many children, aunts, uncles, grandmamas, daddies, sisters, brothers, to die from mass killings that were brought on by AR-15s and other modifications that are done to guns? Now, I do not think in this civilized country that a weapon that was made for war should be one that is just arbitrarily purchased. I understand gun collectors, and in the bill I had this year, if you own one, all we ask is that you register it. But put on your heart and ask yourself this question. Is being in possession of an AR-15 more valuable than the lives that could possibly and have been taken by them? And if we're in a civilized country, we ought to value people's lives much more. All the mental illness we want to talk about is not the answer, because some of these people that kill with these weapons of war, they take the time and write out exactly where they want to cause mass destruction. So I just want to put that on your hearts as we get ready to end this session and go about our daily lives past the legislature, and pay attention to the deaths each day that we're having by weapons of war. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, lady. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Lee, Chairman Lovern.
Mr. Speaker, I have a resolution.
Clerk, see the resolution.
House Resolution number 256 by the House Rules Committee, the special order calendar.
Chairman Lovern, you're recognized.
Move for adoption.
Members' question for the body is adoption of the special order calendar. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is adopted. Clerk, call first bill.
On page 44 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 206 with amendment by the Judiciary Committee by Senator Chambliss relating to crimes and offenses.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm just in shock. Trey got this bill in.
Yes, that's me.
You know, I asked a question this morning with some of our knowledgeable attorneys concerning this bill, because it talks about, you know, when a store might have a sale, and they'll go through and mark through the regular price with a pen. In the bill, it talks about if someone did that purposely and tried to steal the store's money because they marked through the crime. But what happens if you're going so swiftly doing that piece of merchandise didn't get put in the system that it's supposed to be some discount on it? And a person comes up, they got to prove if that item was not put in the system, won't they have to prove that they didn't put the mark on there? And how do they go about doing that?
I mean, that's a good question, but that applies to everything. You have to show intent. So if I'm the store security or law enforcement working at the store, I have to show you intentionally lowered that number or changed the tag. So if the store had done it.
But how do you know? Because they forgot to put that item in the system.
You're talking about the store forgot.
Yeah, and they actually marked the price down. It's just that the person, because you know a lot of times you in the store and a person come up and they'll ring the item up as the regular price, and the person say, well, no, you see, it's got a line marked through it, but it's not in the system. So then there's some confusion. They got to call a lot of people out to prove that that particular item, and I guess it was marked down, but through something that they did not get that particular item in. I'm just wondering, what would the person that ends up in that situation, what would they have to prove, and to prove that they were trying to steal from that store?
Right. Well, I mean, that applies today. That applies right now. I mean, this bill doesn't change any of that. That burden,
yeah, but look
that
here.
burden is not. I mean,
this bill trying to put everybody in the neighborhood in jail.
No.
Because you know, it's always our word against somebody else's. And our word don't ever carry the weight, Mr. Tredd.
Well, this bill is trying to keep those stores in the community. They're shutting down like crazy.
Oh, ours shut down
because
and we don't have
the theft has gotten so bad that they're not only shutting down, they're passing all this cost on to us. So we're trying to preserve these stores in the community,
yeah,
and not shift all this cost onto us. This is a $100 billion problem in America today.
I know it, but you know, also when that little business degree I got, it talked about how companies do make some account for what they probably guesstimate would end up in something being stolen or an accident happening to that garment where they have to write it off. But my thing is that when we're coming up with these types of bills, that just looking through it and reading it, I can imagine in my community. Now, it might not happen as much in your community, but in my community, we could just be walking through the store and just minding our own business, and someone would think that we're doing something illegal. And I have noticed this in certain department stores, and the person depends upon the person that ends up at the cash register, and they'll say, well, it's supposed to be marked down because I didn't put that line there, but the store did it. And sometimes the cashier is so ugly to the people to still try to imply that that person might have done that themselves, because in the process of marking down so many items, that item just did not end up in the proper system. And I've seen the level of embarrassment that the person had to go through by the time they called to the cashier several different people to prove. And I guess what they do in that case is go by either lot number or something of items that should have been on sale before they get down to that point. But I certainly wouldn't want us to put in place something that's going to make it even more difficult for them to prove their level of innocence before they call the whole cavalry out while they're trying to prove it. And I just don't want to see where that is escalated and the person is innocent in all respects. You know, just going through this bill, I just had so many problems. Because, you know, people should not shoplift, but for whatever reason they do it. But then that innocent person, that honest person, when they are thrown into a situation like that, it can be awfully embarrassing and discouraging, where then you might have taken away a person that was a loyal customer that will not go back into the store. Because some stores in my neighborhood, whether I want to go in or not, I go for exactly what you said, so that they'll stay there. And I'll just give them so much business. I might not need anything, but I'll go anyway. I do my bank the same way, because if you don't take advantage of those services, they'll shut down and leave your neighborhood also. So a lot of things I do to try to keep things in the community, but I don't want us passing laws that would escalate and cause the innocent more embarrassment and harm than it does the person who's actually coming into the store and with the intent to steal some way, in some fashion, from that store. So, you know, that was my concern when I read this bill, because even though it's happening now, you ought to see the people when they're embarrassed on that level. And I would suggest that maybe whoever wrote this bill, that you might be in contact with, that's usually people that would deal with retail sales, to also ask them to come up with a better, something on their hands, a better mechanism when you have items on sale that would prevent the mark situation where it was accidentally, it was marked on purpose to be on sale, but never put into the system. Because it's a two-way street, because we want to protect the innocent. I think the law always say that we want to protect the innocent, but we really do, because I've seen it. It's an embarrassing situation for it to happen. So, you know, if you could pass that on to the people, because I'm sure to be carrying this bill, you must have some communication with them, that we would also appreciate that they do what is in their power to do to make sure that shoplifting can go down. Because I do know some stores do calculate, and they put that on their loss sheet every year. And sometimes they put more on the loss sheet than actually was lost. But if we could work together to maybe reduce the crime.
Thank you.
Chair thanks a lady. Chair recognizes a lady from Jefferson, Representative Van.
You know, Mr. Speaker, this is the first bill I never got to explain. Just throwing that out there. But
You need to be a little faster. You can explain it now
I'm
if you
sure
like.
you got a plan. Can I use these 10 minutes? Sure.
Go for it.
Anyway.
That was kind of the reaction you had when I first called you up there, was that.
Treddy, Treddy, Treddy.
Cut the mic off.
How are you, Treddy?
Doing good.
I love having you in these positions.
Oh, I bet you do.
I just think
Calm down, Mr. Rogers.
One favor deserves, you know, like to see what type of moves you working with. You know, I understand. You still got it. That's what you always say, right? You still got it. Am I correct? Do you still have it today?
This is your 10 minutes. Keep going.
It is. You know, I know parliamentary procedure if I don't know anything else. But since we're here on this good bill, I just couldn't resist today. And plus, I've gotten all my bills out for the year. I've had a really good year, you know. So it's like the end of the school year. I can act up just a little bit. But you know, Mr. Speaker, I noticed the other day on your bill, on my bill, when you came up, he should have had that gavel in his hand, because what you were saying was not germane to the subject. But what he did was this right here. He leaned all the way back in the big chair.
I did notice that.
Yeah, I noticed. You noticed it too. You know, we got to figure something out for that. Tell me about this bill, Mr. Treddy. We got to get you a shirt with Treddy. I was somewhere the other day and somebody was saying, I just love that name, Treddy, Treddy, Treddy. So what is this bill about? You know, I'm intrigued with these, anything.
So, as you know, retail establishments across this country are shutting down.
Yes.
A lot of them are shutting down in inner cities.
Yes.
It's because of the theft, mainly the organized. What we're seeing in the latter years is the organized crime. That's infiltrated this type of theft, and the organized theft rings that are stealing upwards of $100 billion worth of merchandise a year, reselling it on different networks, whether it be eBay or fencing it in the neighborhoods. And it's gotten to a problem now where they're pulling out of these communities. They're not able to stay in business. They're not profitable. And you and I are paying the cost of this. And I forgot, I've seen different reports of how much of this cost has been shifted onto the consumer. So we're paying for it. The citizens that are paying for it, the taxpayers are paying for it. We're all paying for it. But now it's gotten so organized that this bill goes to address that. It goes after these individuals, whether you're organizing it, you're from another county, another state, you're involved. it allows us to reach out, the law to reach out and hold the folks accountable no matter where they're at when they're working together for this kind of theft.
So this is the reason I rose today. Why I wanted to know, for instance, in some of the communities, and especially some of the communities that I represent, you have a lot of mom and pop businesses. You have a lot of pop-ups.
Sure.
Especially during the holidays, special occasions, Mother's Day, Valentine's, where folks, they vend. And you have these vendors row. And especially, for instance, in the 5 Points West area, where you have these vendors row and the folks come out, they do the baskets, they have the food trucks, they have all of that. Some of them should, of course, we know should be getting the vendors licensing and all of that. Now, would that have an effect on those businesses? So tell me those individuals that this would impact.
This impacts it spells out all the different type of retail merchants and things like that in the definitions, but basically anybody that is stealing items, retail items, and theft from these type of businesses. There's laws that apply to the food trucks. The main part of this bill that I'm interested in is the organized retail theft portion that goes after the professionals, that goes after the individuals and holds them seriously accountable. When you talk about these other businesses, a lot of that's going to apply under the theft of property laws that are on the book. Retail theft spells out, I mean, I can go in here if you want me to read all the definitions, but it spells out what the retail establishments are. But the same thing with these smaller businesses, whether it's a food truck, there's laws on the books to address that.
I guess I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand the crackdown. How do we crack down, and how do we identify these businesses? And I understand because I see, especially in some of the more urban areas where we're losing a lot of businesses. But that also has to do because a lot of the larger municipalities are not redeveloping those areas. I see it with Inslee, for instance.
Right.
The 5 Points, I just spoke about 5 Points. In Jefferson County, there's not a lot of reinvestment back into those older historic communities. In Birmingham, we invest and continue to reinvest more in the south side of town and not necessarily the west side of town. And there's beginning to be a greater decay in those communities. So we're seeing where those storefronts are now abandoned. I'm just trying to get to how do we, a thievery and being a theft, I'm trying to get to how do we identify the theft? How are we identifying that person? How do we identify the tortfeasor? How do we identify that person that's in breach of the law?
So if you're talking about a retail establishment, the definition here is any place where merchandise is displayed, held, stored, or offered for sale to the public. A retail merchant, any article, product, commodity, component, or item of tangible personal property displayed, held, stored, or offered for sale within a retail establishment. So the definition is very clear on what this bill is going after. This bill is talking about a retail merchant, retail establishment, and then it talks about the retail theft from there. It has the thresholds built in, and then it has the component of organized retail theft, which is now you're getting into folks working together.
So are you saying that, and I'm just trying to understand, I'm really confused on this. I'm just trying to get the clarity. Is this someone who physically walks in and commits theft third and walks into a store, commits theft third, and takes the property of another and then leaves the store? That type of theft? Or I'm trying to get the understanding of the theft. I'm lost.
Well, again, it deals with retail theft and what a retail establishment is, the merchandise, the value, the merchant. It is basically dealing with brick and mortar businesses that are offering items for sale in a couple different ways. One, the theft, which we have laws on the books. We have the threshold.
Absolutely.
And then we have the organized, where two or more people are working together. you may be working with folks that are driving a getaway car. It could be, and things
Okay,
like that.
I get it now. So you're talking about, like, for instance, what has been going on in California, where the folks had literally had these schemes where they would go in with organized theft to go into the Walgreens, CVS's, and literally go in and wipe these stores out, steal all these products, and they would actually go out and then to the black market and sell those products.
Correct.
Are you talking about that kind of theft, or are you just talking about where someone is actually going in just whatever mop, well, in criminal law we would call it a plan or a scheme to go and steal these products and actually still go out and sell these products?
This bill deals with both. If it's talking about a retail establishment, it deals with both.
And sell it in the black market, or go out and they are establishing their own business practice.
Right, that would fall under the organized retail theft and part of this bill. But you also got the individuals that go in and stay below the threshold because they know nothing's going to happen, like in San Francisco, 750, I believe, is the threshold. They stay below it and they go in multiple times. Under this bill, if you go in multiple times, you have an accumulative effect that can be also.
And the lady's time has expired.
I'll be back.
The chair recognizes a gentleman from Dallas, Representative Chestnut.
Does the gentleman
Yes, sir.
yield? Okay. I have an amendment, but I want to talk a little bit before I get to the amendment, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So this bill was prompted by what you're saying is that a lot of, I guess, organized retail theft, right? Is that what's...
We're seeing a lot more of that. Yeah, it has increased, tenfold every year in the last several years. It's a huge business right now. That is impacting what we pay for goods and businesses, going broke, pulling out of communities, pulling those tax dollars out of those communities also. This bill goes to address what we're seeing.
Is it something that is that you're seeing mostly with the large big box retail or with the smaller retail companies? Okay, were you able to, were you able to understand what I was saying there? What question I was asking?
Okay. I'm sorry. Can you?
You're throwing us off with all this. But I was asking, is this something that you're seeing mostly with big box retail, or is it something that's going on with small box retail, or?
Everybody, all of them's included. Big box retail, your high-end small stores, your mom and pop. It's occurring everywhere because, quite frankly, there's no enforcement in there. There's no teeth in the current law. They found a way. Criminals have found a way to make it very profitable.
Do you think that? So is it mostly the organized, where they put a mask on, 5 people run in, smash and grab, or is it just teenagers? A couple of teenage girls in place.
I think it's seriously, it's all the above. We've had a problem. We've had a problem for years with theft. Who? It includes all the above. The small ones. What we're seeing a lot more lately is the organized side of it. That's really the part of the bill that I think is very important, that deals with the organized theft. The ones that are fencing it down at the gas station down the block from the local mom and pop, or the ones who are online or have their own storefront and they're still in merchandise, selling it through there. A number of ways they're doing it, selling out of the trunk of their car. This bill deals really with the part that we're seeing an explosion in, and that is the organized part. Theft has always been a big issue. The retail theft part of this really doesn't change from the theft of property law that's currently on the books. It still deals with those folks. We've just seen an explosion of it because, to be quite frank with you, in my opinion, we stop enforcing the law. We've emboldened the criminal like never before. We can debate that all day long, but the fact is they're going in larger numbers. They got the smash and grabs. You got the individual that's going in and he's just going to steal and defy you to stop him because they know we're not. They know most retail stores have taken a policy not to even approach them. And all these policies, in my opinion, has created the problem to where we stand here today and need legislation like this to try to address it. And it's not going to go anywhere unless we enforce it.
But I'm glad you said that. But so does legislation alone make the difference?
No, but it's part of the tools that are needed to go after these folks, like the organized part. If you were outside providing the getaway car, under current law, how are they going to charge you? They're not. They're going to get the individual. If they go after them, they're going to get the individual that comes out. If law enforcement can prove you were part of it, you're using so you got a stolen car out there.
Yeah.
And then they can through their investigation, they can find out that these items are going to your storefront or your gas station are being fenced. This law is going to allow them to now charge you where we can't charge you now. So it's really just keeping up with the criminal.
This is a follow-up question I have for you. Well, wouldn't it have made more sense to just bring an organized retail theft bill as opposed to just a total overhaul and then because when we started off, we were pretty much saying that 2 young girls could go up in a store. I dare you to take that Snickers bar and be treated like a guy that walks in the store and holds a gun up to the attendant and says, "Give me all your money."
Well, that's not a good comparison because that would be armed robbery. But I get what you're saying, and I think you have an amendment that kind of addresses.
Okay, well,
that.
let's say not an armed robbery. Let's say a robbery without being armed. Just a big hulky guy walks up and give me all your money, right? You're gonna have the same.
Well, that's still robbery because you imply.
Class. What class is that?
Class B, I think.
It's the same class, so it's the same time, 2 to 20, right?
The amendments, I think, addresses your concerns as far as the thresholds and the cumulative effect.
Yeah, but if we hadn't read this bill, we would have been dealing with that, wouldn't we?
But we did read it, and we did find it. And we did address it, and it's hopefully in the amendment that I believe you're going to offer.
So I had an amendment to specifically address the separation between retail and organized, but I was told abruptly that I needed to bring Representative Hill's amendment, so I'm going to bring Representative Hill's amendment instead. And I would offer this amendment. It is,
Clerk, see the amendment.
Okay.
Just the committee. You've got it?
Okay. Right.
So if you want to, I guess, explain the amendment, I'll move to adopt it. It's a friendly amendment?
Okay. If the gentleman would please explain the amendment.
This amendment was offered by Judge Hill in committee, and it's in response to 2 parents stealing baby formula that could be a Class B felony or treated as organized retail theft. This amendment would establish monetary thresholds for organized retail theft. To make organized retail theft only kick in above $500, additional levels for theft would be $1,000 and $2,500. With this amendment, 2 parents stealing baby formula wouldn't be a Class B felony unless they stole $500 worth of baby formula. So, yeah.
You've heard the explanation of the amendment. Ms. Hall, do you want to speak on the amendment? Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Cavan.
Yeah.
I was preoccupied. Tell me what your amendment does.
This is not my amendment. This is Judge Jim Hill's amendment, but it is a committee amendment
I don't care
that
if
was
it's
done to address.
whoever. It could be Justice Roberts' amendment. I don't care whose it is. I just want you to tell me what it does.
Okay, do you have the bill in front of you? I can go page by page,
That's fine.
line by
Just
line
take
with
me
you
where I
if
need
you
to go.
would like to know that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who it is. Judge Hill is a member just like everybody else in here. Now help me get to where I need to go.
Okay. So if you go to page 1.
You're presenting it.
Go to line number 3. Right? So what we would do is we would remove lines 3 through 19 on page number 1.
So we're going page number 1. And line what now?
Remove lines 3 through 19.
Okay, 3 through 19.
Okay, all of that's going to be removed, right?
Okay.
Okay, let's go to page 6.
Okay, page 6.
Okay, after line 168 on page 6, insert this new subsection. B1, theft of one or more items of retail merchandise, the aggregate value of which exceeds $2,500 in retail value during a 1 year or longer period constitutes organized retail theft, which is to be distinguished between regular retail theft. B2 would be added. Theft of retail merchandise consisting of one or more items of retail merchandise during a 180-day period, the aggregate value of which is $1,000 or more constitutes organized retail theft. And number 3, theft of retail merchandise consisting of one or more items, a 30-day period, the aggregate value of which is $500 or more constitutes organized. Okay, and then of course it finishes, it says retail theft on it. And then go to page number 10.
Page number who?
10. Okay, page number 10. Replace line 254 with the following. Organized retail theft may be sworn and issued by a judge or magistrate. And then replace line 256 on page 10. Physical presence of the affiant before the judge or magistrate is not.
Okay, now help me understand the rationale behind this amendment based upon what you on behalf of Hill has submitted.
Which part?
All of it. The whole thing.
Yeah, but what it does is it changes because earlier, before that, if like we said earlier, that you would have had a situation where if a couple of parents went in and took baby formula, they would be faced with a felony. Okay, and that's not going to be the case now unless it exceeds $500 worth of baby formula.
So you are increasing the threshold.
Yes.
So therefore, in number 2, therefore retail merchandise consisting of one or more items of retail merchandise during a 180-day period, the aggregate value of which is $1,000 or more constitutes organized retail theft. Break that one down. Number 2.
On what page are you talking? What page are you reading from?
The very first, it's on the amendment.
Okay. Theft of retail merchandise consisting of one or more items of retail merchandise during a 180-day period, the aggregate value of which is $1,000 or more, constitutes organized retail theft. Okay, what was the question again? What was the question again?
I have no further questions. I think I've been able to pick up what you're trying to do, since you said you're basically trying to change the threshold. The theft of retail merchandise consists of one or more items of retail merchandise during a period of 30 days, the aggregate value of which is $500 or more, constitutes organized crime. Typically, those are your cases where that falls more in line with your theft third charges, typically when you should get into that $500 range. And so what are we doing on that one, number 3?
Number 3, so during a 30-day period, if the aggregate value of the thefts total $500 or more, then that's going to be organized retail theft.
Okay.
And that's a way to keep a criminal from just going back and, okay, I know what the threshold is, so I'm just going to take less, and then.
Yeah, and so that's why I was trying to get to, how did we get to that 30-day? Why are we putting that 30-day range in there for that?
I can't tell you the answer to that.
That 30-day period.
I couldn't tell you the answer to that. I can't open up the mental operation of Judge Hill right now, so.
Okay, all right. Not the author of the amendment, I'll just reserve comment at this time. I think I've picked up enough to gather enough information for myself, and then I'll speak with some of my good judges that I have relationship with to try to get a little bit more clarity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair thanks the lady. The question for the body is adoption of the amendment. Clerk will unlock proceedings and members will vote.
Of course. The hell, I'm going to stand down here for an hour?
Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes, 102 ayes, 0 nays. Amendment has been adopted. Chairman Treadway.
Oh, we have another friendly amendment.
I'm going to let Chairman Gray introduce you want to introduce my amendment? Okay, all right. Okay.
Hold on a second. Hold on. I don't have you at the mic right now. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
Amendment.
Okay, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Lee, Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I have a friendly amendment that Prince Chestnut was trying to bring earlier.
Clerk, proceed the amendment.
Amendment 2, Senate Bill number 206 by Representative Gray.
Okay, gentleman, explain the amendment.
So this amendment replaces line 195 on page 7 with the following: theft upon request of the district attorney. And what it really does is a person who shoplifts for a small amount, they will not be required to pay restitution, but this does not include organized theft.
Sponsor have heard the explanation of the amendment. Do you
Yes,
see
sir.
it as a friendly amendment?
Yeah, yes, it is. That's not normally what law enforcement does on the low end, but on organized, it does maintain for law enforcement agencies to get the restitution. That's what it doesn't mean that the merchant the individual is still responsible for restitution to the merchant, just not law enforcement.
Okay, we've heard the explanation of the amendment. Chair recognizes on the amendment.
All they would do will replace line 195 on page 7 with the following: theft upon request of the district attorney. Yeah.
Okay, we've heard the explanation of the amendment. The sponsor says it's a friendly amendment. Clerk will unlock machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machines, record the votes. 101 ayes, 0 nays. The amendment has passed.
There's
Chairman
no other
Treadway.
questions. I move for final passage.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Rogers.
Hey, I just want one question. I know what you're trying to do. I just don't want no kids to go in the store, maybe 4 or 5 of them getting out of school, and then they pick up some candy or something. It's more than one. It's 4 or 5 of them together. It wouldn't affect them with like 4 or 5 teenagers or something like that. Would it bother them?
No, it's still theft. Obviously, you're not supposed to be stealing, but
I know that.
It doesn't fall under the organized type thresholds. So the thresholds, it's just theft of property.
Okay, but it's more than one. So they were telling me back
Theft of
there.
property on each one of them. If each one of them stole a candy bar, but that doesn't change any of that. That's current law.
Okay, but what I was wondering, I didn't want a group of kids getting out of school. Somebody go by these little mom and pop stores and something, and they see some candy and get the candy. I didn't want this to go on their record as they had an organized crack of 4 or 5 of them in the store. You see what I'm getting at? I don't want this to be a thing to fall back on them getting a record while they're kids. So it's about 4 or 5, 6 together.
No, that's a good question. That's what the amendment addressed, because that was a big concern back in the committee when they were working through the bill. That was the concern. The amendment addressed that. So to answer your question, no, they wouldn't be charged on an organized retail theft type of crime.
Okay, that's my concern. You know how that happens. A bunch of kids getting out of school, they go in there and they pick up 4 or 5 candy bars, and then they got a record the rest of their life. So that you telling me that won't happen, right?
That's right.
All right,
correct.
That's all I want to know.
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Question for the body now is passage of SB 206. Clerk will unlock the machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 76 ayes, 27 nay. SB 206 has passed.
Thank you.
Thank the gentleman. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 54 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 261 by Senator Roberts relating to public contracts.
Jim Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is Senate Bill 261 by Senator Roberts. This bill requires companies that contract with the state to certify that they don't boycott other companies based on any purpose other than ordinary business purposes. It also prohibits any business entity in Alabama from engaging in boycotts and divestment strategies. That, Mr. Speaker, no questions. I call for the vote.
That is questions. Final passage of SB 261. Clerk will unlock the machines. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 74 ayes, 27 nays. SB 261 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you,
gentlemen.
members.
Clerk, call next bill.
On page 51 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 279 by Senator Price relating to education.
Representative Woods, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 279 by Senator Price deals with the current section of code that deals with the superintendents of education. This bill would remove stipulations that would inhibit the county superintendents of education from having their salaries changed during their term of office. It would allow them, their boards, to then make changes during their term and be retroactive to 2021. With that, Mr. Speaker, I move for final passage.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, this is dealing with elected superintendents.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, with this bill, who will decide the superintendent's pay?
Their boards will continue to decide their pay. Nothing
But
changes.
what is the difference?
Well, currently, an appointed superintendent, their board can amend or change their salary or their contract anytime they want.
Not necessarily. It has to be in the original contract. Now, and being on the school board, they just can't arbitrarily do it. They've got to do a performance evaluation, and it has to go in line with the original contract that the superintendent signed. And if there's any difference in that, then they've got to go in the negotiation. But they just can't arbitrarily. So I don't know where that information came from.
Right. Well, it's my understanding in the code that an elected superintendent has to have their salary fixed prior to their term of office.
Right.
So this would take that out and put it on par with what the other boards of education in the state have.
But
Now,
it
they may have
doesn't.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't. Because when a board hires a superintendent, they negotiate that into the contract. They have the time frame that he could be considered for an increase in salary. And then, like most of them, when the board does the performance evaluation, then it's a numerical value to the performance evaluation. If the numerical value falls below 3, then that performance evaluation has to be publicized, but you can't arbitrarily come in and give them a raise unless there's a certain point that's added up in the performance. So I don't know where that come, because then if we're going to put it in par with the hired superintendent versus elected, then what they got to do is go in. I don't know, with an elected superintendent, there's a spot in there for a performance evaluation. Then it's based upon the performance evaluation what percentage of raise he could get and when it can come about.
Right.
So will that be in? I didn't see that
In the
in this
current
bill.
code, it's not, that is not addressed in this section of code currently.
Right.
And so I would agree with you that there are usually criteria that would be involved in any raises that come up. Perhaps it is an annual review, but we're not getting into that. That's for the local
You're
board.
just saying that the board can determine whether they get a increase in salary or not, but it's
During the
probably
term of
going to go according to what the criteria
Correct.
that is in place for
superintendents. The elected superintendents, their boards are not going to be able to authorize a raise during their term of office based on any criteria. They get their original contract, and that's it.
That's what I'm saying. For your elected superintendent, this will allow some protocol. Instead of the superintendent having a fixed salary during his term, it will allow the board to, through some process, to be able to increase their salary.
That would be left up to the individual board. Yes,
But if it's going to be left up to them, which is silent in this bill, they must follow the protocol that boards have to follow for superintendents that are not elected.
Right.
So is there any reference to that
No, ma'am.
section of the code in this bill
That is not referenced in the original code, as far as I understand.
for elected superintendents?
In the code that we're amending here, not that I've seen. It's a very short.
For elected superintendents?
Correct.
That's why I'm saying, so if we want to change it,
Well, we're
if
not,
your bill is to change it so that that elected superintendent could get some consideration for increase in salary, then don't you think that in the bill it ought to have some protocol as to how they will go about doing that?
I'm just trying to give the elected superintendent's board the same administrative authority as any other board in the state.
But you're not, because they have protocol. They have protocol in place as to how that hired superintendent can be considered for increase in salary. And the ones that I dealt with, it was already defined in that contract that was signed for that superintendent. These are the things that you must do and in order to be considered for an increase in salary. Then included in that, that's how we come back and develop the performance evaluation based upon what the contract says the superintendent must accomplish, the level they must accomplish them, and we form the performance evaluation from that, and based upon the numerical value of that performance evaluation determines whether the superintendent get a raise. This document doesn't put in place the process. To say that it allows them to determine whether an elected superintendent get an increase in salary, we do need a process to accomplish that. This bill doesn't address that process, and we cannot make the assumption that the school board, because he might have people on there that love him, and say this is what we want to do, and then when the citizen come and ask how did you determine that, they won't have a process to show how they determine the level of a raise and the fact that that superintendent deserved a raise.
Right. Well, if I may expound a little bit, a lot of our superintendents have contracts that are tied to the teachers' pay increases that's part of their contract language, like the 2% raise we just voted on last week, that they had received that. But in 21, this body, the legislature, awarded a new salary matrix.
Right.
That was in addition, had additional steps.
I saw it, yeah.
And so some of your superintendents received that raise by their board. They awarded it to them, but they were unable to go in and amend their contracts to reflect them receiving that raise. So your appointed boards
those school board members with their attorneys, if they wanted to go back and renegotiate, they could have. Now that's easy to say what they could, because it was the board members with the superintendent that came up with the original salary.
Sure.
So if you pass a bill to allow them to have it, I'm just saying it can't be just arbitrary.
Sure.
You got to have some protocol, like you said. Some is based upon the teacher's increase. Ours based upon a performance evaluation. But I do think we should not just pass a bill to say he deserves it, which I believe they do.
And that's not what I'm trying to accomplish here.
I know, but you don't have a process in the bill. That's my concern. You don't have a process to accomplish it, because if a superintendent has done a great job, they deserve it. And I've seen superintendents come in, turn a whole system around, but they had a process in their contract as to how they accomplish whatever increase. And since you gave one example, I gave one example, but there's nothing in this bill to say how they determine the raise that that superintendent gets. And I think it ought to be in the contract, or else you still have created a problem, because when the board says our superintendent deserves a contract, then the next question is, how do we determine that?
Right. Well, I'd like to speak to that if you'd allow me.
Okay.
So you made a mention of a really good superintendent receiving a raise based on merit. Well, if that was an elected superintendent, they would have to wait till their next term of office to receive that raise.
I understand that, and I understand what you're trying to do, but there's no process for that elected superintendent to get a raise in your bill. So if the board is going to determine that that elected superintendent deserves a raise, it must be a process that they go through to explain first why he or she deserves a raise. Secondly, based upon some metrics, this is what the raise will amount to. I don't see that anywhere in this bill.
Well, I agree with you that they should have some merit as to why they receive a raise, but I do think it should be left up to the local board to make that determination.
But you should put something in there for the local boards, because you haven't given the local board a process.
Well, they don't.
And it shouldn't be arbitrary that I like you. We all 5, 6, 10, we love you. so we're going to give you a raise. It's got to be something that's documented, and a clause could have been put in this bill to refer to that it won't be arbitrary. And it shouldn't just say it's going to be up to them. What's up to them? To come up with the criteria? That's not stated in here. That they'll come up with the criteria. That's not in the bill either.
And the lady's time has expired. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Winston, Representative Wadsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Right now, do sheriffs have the ability to change their salary while they're in office?
That is probably up to the county commission, if I had to guess, but I'm not aware of that.
Okay. I'll just say right now, I think we're opening a Pandora's box if we do this, because then you're going to have sheriffs, boards of education, commissioners, tax assessors, tax collectors, revenue commissioners, probate judges, district judges, all coming and asking that they be given that same authority. But to me, when somebody runs for superintendent, they know what that salary is on the front end, and by giving boards the authority to raise it during the term, I don't think that's a good thing. But I do want to ask you, is there a cap on the amount of raise that a board of education can give to a superintendent?
It's not my understanding that there's any cap for any board, appointed or elected. They can set it however they need to. But I would like to speak to your point. What you just mentioned are all elected officials. Right. All those positions are. And while the elected superintendents are an elected position, the Supreme Court of Alabama has multiple court cases that suggest that they are not an official in the same capacity as, say, the sheriff or you and I, that they are officials of the board, that their authority is only placed in them by their board. So they have no sovereignty in the county or in the state. And there's court precedent, I can share them with you, that show that they could receive a raise or decrease during office.
I appreciate that, but that's the concern I have, that raising when people are elected, we know what the salary will be, and I get concerned that we raise it during their term when they knew what it was at the beginning with. But I thank you for your information.
Sure. We're going to talk with you more about it. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I still say, I understand what you're doing, but it's got to be a process in place for them to know. To give you an example, when I've been on the board, you hire a superintendent. We sit down and we negotiate the salary. We also negotiate the frequency of evaluation and what would determine whether that superintendent gets a raise or not. Once we signed off on the contract, then we get with our attorneys to put a process in place that would say, Superintendent A, in a year, 2 years, if you have accomplished this level, this level, or this level of several categories that have been outlined in his contract, if you accomplish it on level 1, 2, or 3, with the 3 being the highest, you might have hit 2 levels. Then if you do that, then we have agreed that you would get this percentage increase. Next time your evaluation comes up, in order for you to get a raise, you still have the criteria and the level that you must get overall value and get a raise. It also suppose it's in his 4th year. It might have in your 4th year, if you accomplish this on this level, then this would be the percentage of raise. But I don't see a provision in your bill for even the board members to come back to determine a matrix of a raise nor a process of what you must accomplish in order to get the raise. I just don't see it. And nobody, if the school system has to have some type of cap, because as we all know, every school system is dealing with a different amount of money. So it can't just be no cap, no boundary, no process that we could just give you whatever. And I think a few years ago, since I heard Representative Wadsworth talking about law enforcement, I think we had this sheriff that was out west. Every time it was in New Mexico, I believe, when he came up, he decided, I'm gonna get this raise. And he was robbing the city blind because there was no process in place. And your bill doesn't address it. And I agree with what you're trying to do, that even though that person's salary is fixed at the time of the election, but for him or her to be considered for an increase, a process must be put in place.
Right, I understand.
That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Representative Shirey.
Don't leave on. I just have a couple of questions after that discussion. Just help me out on this. So the superintendent is elected by the people.
Some superintendents, I believe there's 36.
Okay. But according to this bill, an elected superintendent gets elected and then negotiates his salary?
Currently, in the current code, their contract or their salary has to be fixed before they begin their term of office. This would allow their boards to negotiate, amend, whatever they need to do with their contract language after they're in office. Now, bear in mind, it creates the same administrative authority as a Board of Education that has an appointed superintendent. They can make contract changes. You know, it may be on a certain interval, but they can do that. And let me share one other thing, if you don't mind. This is kind of predicated based on the minimum state salary that was instituted in 2021. The legislature awarded an additional steps, a couple of steps for educators, and a lot of our superintendents have language that says that they will receive the same raises that an educator would receive. And so it created a little bit of a gray area where in some contracts, some of their language didn't necessarily specify that it was tied to the state salary matrix. And so your boards of education with an appointed superintendent could go in, amend their contract language to reflect that, whereas an elected superintendent's board could not. And the situation it creates is one where the Department of Examiners may have audit findings with the elected superintendent's board where they wouldn't, for somebody who had received the same raise, their board awarded them the same exact raise that was appointed. So it gives the same administrative authority to both types of boards.
Doesn't it tie the board's hands? They pretty much have to give them a raise because they're elected.
No. The board can make that determination, and not every board awarded that same raise to their superintendents. So it still gives all the authority to the board as to what criteria they want to use.
Okay.
We're not awarding a new raise here. Let me clarify that.
And the second thing is, if the board decides to give them a raise, it's retroactive to 2021?
Yes, just like I mentioned, in 21, the body awarded a new salary matrix that went into effect in 22. And local boards, some local boards awarded their superintendents with that raise per their contract language. But it created a gray area as to whether or not they should have. And so the appointed superintendents boards were able to go in and amend their language to reflect that raise. But we've kind of handicapped by this current code section with our elected superintendents to be able to do the same thing. So if we don't amend this, it's going to create findings, when they get their audits unnecessarily.
My concern is that they negotiate this pay raise. It's way over that step raise they got in 2021. And we have to go back to 2021 and pay them that raise that they just negotiated.
Now, they've already been awarded their raise. Like if they're dealing with this, they've already been awarded that raise. And it was by the local board's decision to do that. And one other scenario to keep in mind here is if you had an elected superintendent, say they made $100,000 a year, but there was a city system not too far away that wanted to give them, say, $120,000 a year, but the local board wanted to retain them, and they had the ability to pay them that additional $20,000, they wouldn't be able to. They couldn't award that additional money, so they would lose their talent. So that's another aspect to this.
But if they were able and they could give them the 120, then but they still have to go back to 2021 and pay them up to here.
No, that would not be my understanding.
Okay.
No, because every system's different. It's not uniform pay across the board.
Okay.
There's a big disparity in superintendent's pay across the state.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Calhoun, Representative Gidley.
Eric, would you yield?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just quickly, and I hope I'm not oversimplifying here, but I've read the bill, and it's a very short bill. If I understand it correctly, I know we've talked a lot about the board setting all of that, but those things should already be set. I don't think this bill really addresses anything different that the board would do. Am I correct there?
That is correct. It will just give that board the authority to amend their contract language.
Exactly.
During the term of office.
All their caps are set, all their processes set, everything's in place. All this does is mainly puts elected and appointed superintendents on the same playing field. Is that oversimplifying?
It would level the playing field for the two types of boards. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Question for the body now is final passage of SB 279. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 92 ayes, 7 nays. SB 279 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 41 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 94 by Senator Weaver relating to Shelby County.
Representative Ellis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Members, Senate Bill 94 is the exact version of House Bill 140 that we've already passed out of this body a little earlier in the session. But as a reminder, it simply takes the Shelby County juvenile probation officers and puts them as employees of the state. Right now, they're employees of the county. We're one of only 5 counties that does it that way, and we've got an Attorney General opinion that we can't manage those as county employees. If there's no questions, Mr. Speaker, I call for final passage.
That is questions. Final passage of SB 94. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 90 ayes, 1 nay. SB 94 has passed.
Thank you, members. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 30 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 99 by Senator Gavand relating to the courts.
Representative Chestnut, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. This bill is a companion bill with the House bill that I brought about juror mileage. We're just trying to get it above the 5 cents. And so if it's time to vote, I'd like to ask for adoption of the bill.
That is questions. Final passage of SB 99. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine and record the votes. 101 ayes, 0 nays. SB 99 has passed.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to acknowledge Representative David Faulkner for picking this bill. Thank you for picking it so we can get this thing rolling.
Don't know that that was necessary. I don't. If it'd been somebody else, maybe, right? Yeah. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 17 of the calendar, House Bill number 56 with substitute by Senator Orr relating to education.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. I move at this time that we carry over SB 56 to the call of the chair.
All those in favor say aye. The bill has been carried over.
Thank you.
Clerk, call next bill.
On page 35 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 292 by Senator Roberts relating to taxation.
Chairman Lovern, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This bill is identical to HB 440 that cut some of the red tape out. It's listed as a tax exemption, but it's not a new exemption. This just streamlines through finance the process for filing for those exemptions. If no other questions, move to final passage.
That is questions, final passage of SB 292. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 103 ayes, 0 nays. SB 292 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members.
Thank the gentleman. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 55 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 223 by Senator Figures relating to criminal procedure.
Mr. Speaker, I move to carry this bill over to the call of chair.
That's the motion to carry the bill over. All in favor say aye. Opposed, the bill has been carried over. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 59 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 309 by Senator Chambliss relating to public contracts.
Chairman Pettis, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Back in 2022 legislation session, we established the office of the procurement officer within Department of Finance. Inadvertently, a language was left out. This bill just puts it back like the law said before 2022. With that, I ask for final passage.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Etowah, Representative Lipscomb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have an amendment.
Kirk, see the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill number 309 by Representative Lipscomb.
This bill, as it is a RF request for proposal process for design professionals in the state. I think the intention, I can't speak for the senator, but I think the intention was to grab the engineering component of it. What it does is it inadvertently has grabbed the architectural component of it. In doing so, what's going to happen is that if this bill, as written, stays as is, it will create a monopoly in the architectural world in which there will be one architectural firm in the state, theoretically, that if for every project that they send a request for qualifications in, they will get that project. So what this amendment is going to do is to strike out the words architects, and it's going to add a paragraph that says, a request for qualifications may be submitted to an architect for his or her professional services provided upon a determination by the procuring entity that the architect is adequately qualified to perform the contract. The architect's character, reputation, aptitude, location to the project site, and personality may play a decisive part in awarding the contract. This does not do anything to negatively impact this bill. I've tried to coordinate with the bill sponsor. We've had some pushback back and forth. He may consider this to be an unfriendly amendment, but it is a good amendment. And if he asks to have it tabled, I would ask that you vote no on the tabling motion, because to table this amendment will create a monopoly in this state.
Yeah, you've heard the explanation of the amendment. What's the sponsor's request?
The sponsor wants to table the amendment.
That is request is to table the amendment. If you vote to table the amendment, your vote will be aye. If you vote not to table the amendment, your vote will be no. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote, 7 ayes, 72 nays. The amendment has been adopted.
I would request for approval of the amendment. I would like to ask
the
for...
tabling motion fails, my fault.
I'd like to ask for movement of the amendment, please.
It would... We'll be voting on the amendment.
Sir?
I've got some lights on. You want to talk to the amendment or to the bill? Okay. Chair recognizes the lady from Madison, Representative Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say thank you to the gentleman. And I think that what you just demonstrated is what I see across the board in a number of things. That, let's say, the roadways. That it looks like when we ride up and down the road, when we look and we only see certain contractors each time. And I certainly am appreciative of the approach that you're using. So it seems to me it makes sense. So what I saw when I read the bill, it did include other, engineers and et cetera. But if this qualification, you're only submitting it for architects, would you not want the same thing for the other groups as well?
Out of professional courtesy to the bill sponsor, I don't want to touch his profession.
I understand. But it makes sense.
It may make sense.
It's a logical, reasonable request. So if it's making sense for the architects, it to me makes sense for the engineers, the road builders, all of those different groups. So, but I want to say thank you for this because it's a step in the right direction. Long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the lady. Representative Moore, do you want to speak on the amendment? Okay. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Rogers, to speak on the amendment.
I like the amendment. It take an architect, but what about everybody else? What it does, it protects you. What about everybody else? It takes out a competitive bidding process for minorities if you go to regular bid. Your bill good for architects, what about everybody else?
Well, the architects and engineers are treated a little differently in their policy and the way that they get projects. Engineers are...
Hey, you can forgive me. I like your bill, I did. But I want to protect everybody for the same process. I think it should be protected. But if you don't add it for everybody, you prevent minorities, other folks from getting a fair shot at getting any kind of business. So therefore, I don't want to limit the architect, that's fine, but why not on the process for everybody?
Now, the RFQ process already exists.
I know.
He's not creating this law. He's making an adjustment to it. I'm making an adjustment to his adjustment.
Well, I want to make it just for everybody. So it's okay. What you did is fine. I support it. But all we open up for somebody else to get a chance to get a shot at it also. Because the way it's written now is, okay, well, architect, what about some other folks, like some other minorities who getting screwed at this bill?
I think you and I should get together afterwards and talk about a bill for next session, too.
No, they're going to do it this session. Next session, I'm going to have operations. I might not make through my operations. I won't be here to see it. So what I'm saying to you is good for architects, but what about everybody else? In other words, if you don't change it, you are ruling out a whole segment of the population. It's not good for minorities. Where it's good for your minority architect, what about somebody else who doing something on it, other than architects? I
think it would depend upon what the criteria is.
I'm not arguing against your amendment. I'm saying I like it, but I want to be more inclusive in your amendment.
Yeah,
I want to open it up. That's what I want to do.
There are probably some requests for proposals that depends upon the circumstance of the project.
No, come on. Now. You sit behind me. I know that, hey.
I can't say for sure.
Hey, you protect the architect. I want to protect some other people also. But you where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Architects are fine. I go along with that. But I want to open up for somebody else other than the architect. I ought to have the same for being an architect. You'll get architects are fine. I don't blame you. You got a good amendment. I want to add on to your amendment to make it inclusive for what about electrician? What about electrician? What about a plumber? Or electrician, somebody else? What about that? What about them?
They wouldn't be subject to a request for qualifications. They would do a bid process. It's kind of two different processes.
Well, what about engineers?
Engineers, yes, they do fall into that category.
What about, we got some minority engineers that might want to have a piece of this pie. So it's a good idea. I just want to open up for more than just architects. You got engineers, you got people who are draftsmen, you got all those folks included. Why not open up the process for everybody? So all I want to do is expand your amendment to include more people than just the people you included, the engineers, the architects. It all be inclusive. So if you could change your amendment just a little bit to include everybody who's involved in the process, it'd be a good amendment for everybody.
I think the language in here does, I think, address to some extent the fact that we're looking for more criteria than just your firm's size. So that may take that into consideration.
But can we open up just a little, include more people? I'm all for your amendment now. I think you did right, but I'm trying to be more open. Who's the sponsor of the bill? Where is he? Can we open it up a little bit to make it more inclusive for everybody? Just architects? Huh? I don't care what the senator wants. Hey, he said the senator wanted what I wanted. The senator, what I care what the senator wants. He don't want it because it ought to be an open process. You shouldn't include anybody. I'm glad to get the engineers in it. Fine. But Sam Jones might know somebody with another company that ought to be included in it. So why not? Why can't we open the process up for everybody? Not just architects. To make it a much fair process, because the senator want it don't make no difference. You understand what I'm saying? I think it's a good idea. I just want to be more inclusive with it. That's all I'm saying. Can we open the amendment up to include some other people besides just the architects?
Do you mind if we talk after we get off this particular motion?
Well, we can talk, but I don't want the bill to pass without doing that. I just don't feel fair. Now you're going to tell me wait the next session. Why wait the next session when we got time to do it right now? Have a conference committee, we all work on it to get it right.
Hey, John, you want to know the truth?
Well, yeah.
You want to know the truth?
Yeah.
I got to get out of here.
You got to get out.
I got to go set up for the band at our party here in a couple of hours. I need you to just go ahead and vote on this thing so I can split.
No, what I can't. Wait, I don't. Hey, I'm not gonna be. Hey, I can't dance no. I got a bad heel, so what I care? So what I care about a band? I can't pop no movie. I've been a part of the wrong thing. So I don't care about no band right now. All I want to do is open the process up for more just engineers. That's all I'm saying. It's a good amendment, a good bill. I just open the process up for more just engineers. Just look your amendment a little bit and say over other occupations other than engineers that's associated with the bill. Can we do that?
Let's pass this first.
No, wait. You can take your same amendment and say other occupations attached to this should have the same right as engineers. How about that?
It's not quite as simple as what you think. It's a very complicated situation where you're contemplating different professions that would not be submitting through this process as it is. It's a whole different process.
Give me one that wouldn't be. Engineers would be part of it, wouldn't?
Yeah, but because they're a design professional, but it would not be applicable to any kind of construction personnel or anything of that sort.
Big part. Somebody said wait till next year too. Again, if that's what you want to do, but you see where I'm coming from, right?
I do. I absolutely do.
I just feel like we ought to be a little more fairer in your amendment. I want your amendment because these old process of some, I'll try to open up a little bit more. That's all I was trying to do. But if you give me your commitment, who's sponsoring the bill? Who's the sponsor? In the Senate?
In the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, is it possible that since they want to the last day, that we can mark this bill? If I survive my surgery, we come back. We come back, and I want this bill to be one of the first things we consider. And I'm putting on your burden on your shoulder. We consider to open the process up. I'm not trying to be hold anything up. It's just that the process. I want that in. I want to send a word to the city. I know he listened that when we come back, and I'll be back doing the jig. We'll be hopping them on, hopefully. We make a provision in here that includes other folks for everybody, okay? That's fair enough? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Question for the body is adoption of the amendment Clerk will unlock machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine and record the votes. 96 ayes, 3 nays. The amendment has been adopted.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Ask for final passage as amended.
That is questions. Final passage as amended. Clerk will unlock the machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 100 ayes, 2 nays. SB 309 has passed.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 43 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 198 by Senator Orr relating to crimes and offenses.
Representative Almond, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is SB 198. It's known as the Class D felony bill, and it's a lot of moving parts to the bill, but the crux of the bill is this. Currently, judges do not have judicial discretion to award jail time to somebody who commits a Class D felony, and that's fine until they have multiple Class D felonies, such as 20 breaker and enter into a vehicle, and the judge cannot award jail time. And the goal of this bill would be to give judicial discretion or restore judicial discretion to Class D felons. They also have, of course, the discretion to continue to award probation. And another goal of the bill is to incentivize the Class D felons to enter into some sort of alternative sentencing arrangement, such as community corrections, drug court, veterans court, so that they can hopefully get the treatment that they need and have the felony removed from their record. So unless there are questions, Mr. Speaker, I move for final passage.
That is questions. Final passage of SB 198. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 74 ayes, 27 nays. SB 198 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, lady. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 35 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 184 with substitute by Senator Albritton relating to the Department of Corrections.
Representative South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. SB 184 clarifies that the Department of Corrections can expend funds for the recruitment of corrections officers. The way this has been explained to me is marketing materials used at job fairs. So with that, I move for final passage.
Yeah, I'm showing a committee sub on this, Kyle. Ways and Means sub.
I don't have a sub. You got it. Yes, sir. There was a substitute. It was technical in nature. I know. Thank you. I think it's the effective date, Mr. Speaker. I think it's just the effective date.
Yeah, you heard the explanation for the sponsor. It changes the effective date. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 85 ayes, 16 nays. The sub has been adopted.
Move for final passage, please.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Marengo, Representative McCampbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I guess this might be one of the last times you and I will have this ability to conversate. So why don't you just take time and tell me what this bill
Okay.
really does?
So the department felt like they needed clarification within the statute that they could expend their appropriated funds for marketing materials to attract new corrections officers. So the example that was given to me is they go to a job fair somewhere in the state, the local sheriff's department or local municipalities have swag or whatever else that they're giving away to attract newcomers to the profession, and they want to make sure that they have those same abilities.
Okay, will they be using any of this with any chamber of commerces that you know of?
I don't think so.
I'm just trying to see if is there any benefit in?
No, sir, not at all.
Now, are you sure? Because
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I thought we were having such a good time down here that you and I would be here, for the duration.
You're going to see a lot more of me, AJ.
I'm going to see a lot more of you.
I'm going to go ahead and apologize, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't think I like his answer to that last one.
Question for the body is final passage of SB 184. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 77 ayes, 25 nays. SB 184 has passed.
Thank you, Mr.
Clerk, call
Speaker.
next bill. Thank you, gentlemen.
On page 55 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 224 by Senator Figures relating to crimes and offenses.
Chairman Simpson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this bill would do would it change the age for victims under this statute. The age for victims is not defined. This would make that place for the specific age to be under 17 in the statute. It would also amend where the jurisdiction for the distribution of the private images, also called revenge porn, can be prosecuted. This is needed because a lot of times the images will be taken from one area and dispersed in another area. So this would clarify jurisdiction. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I ask for final passage.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Talladega, Representative Robbins.
I have an amendment. I think it'll be a friendly amendment. It just clarifies to what you talked about with, revenge porn, basically, where now the code says you have to have the intent to harass, threaten, coerce, or intimidate. I just struck that. So now if you post or submit or transmit a photo of someone without their consent, that is the crime. You don't have to prove the intent to harass or coerce anymore.
I would consider this a friendly amendment.
Clerk, see the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill number 224 by Representative Robbins.
Heard the explanation of the amendment. Question for the body is passage of the amendment. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 101 ayes, 0 nays. The amendment has been adopted. Chairman Simpson.
With that, Mr. Speaker, I ask for final passage.
That is questions. Final passage of SB 224. Clerk will unlock the machine. Record the vote. Clerk will lock machine. Record the votes. 103 ayes, 0 nays. SB 224 has passed. Clerk, if you will, call up 223. We carried it over. Let's bring it back up, please.
On page 55 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 223 by Senator Figures, related to criminal procedure.
Chairman Simpson.
What this would is it defines for the child hearsay exception. Currently, the child would have to be a victim and they can testify by closed circuit television and things like that. This would allow, if the child is a witness to a crime, it would allow those same provisions to be applicable for the child to be able to testify by closed circuit television if the child is a witness.
Heard the explanation of the bill. The question now is final passage of SB 223. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the body.
Thank the gentleman. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 103 ayes, 0 nays. SB 223 has passed. Clerk, call next bill on special order.
On page 57 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 281 by Senator Albritton, relating to motor vehicles.
1 second before we start on this one, please. Chair would like to recognize some guests in the gallery. Harley Reese Brockett, also of Magnolia School. Red Robin leader, Pierre Hepper. Francis Holt Jones is the representative. Let's give him a big hand for being with us today. Chairman Wilcox, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to bring SB 281 on behalf of Senator Albritton. He brought this bill to the License Plate Oversight Committee, and they overwhelmingly, Representative Daniels and some of the other members of the committee overwhelmingly endorsed it. This will allow the current and past chairman of the USS Battleship to have a distinctive license plate designating them so.
Yeah, you've heard the explanation of the bill. Question for the body now is final passage of SB 281. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote.
Thank you.
Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 103 ayes, 0 nays. SB 281 has passed.
Thank you. Thank the body.
Thank the lady. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 40 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 285 by Senator Jones, relating to wine festivals.
Representative Collins, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. Several years ago, this body passed several different types of wine bills, one a direct shipment, one a direct delivery, and one about wine festivals. And a lot of times you need to adjust them, and that's what this does. It just does a little tweaks, and I'm going to tell you what those are. It allows a nonprofit to host a wine festival as long as the most of the proceeds go to the nonprofit. Streamlines application, blanket liability, and I'd move for final passage, Mr. Speaker.
That is question is, Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
Did it go?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, it seemed like we had a bill during this session where nonprofits could get free wine if they were having an event. So would this go hand in hand with the nonprofits that's doing these festivals be able to request free wine?
I think they have. I know when we've done events, we've had people that have donated wine and we've had some that have paid for it. This is just simply saying that at the festival, they could have a wine festival as long as the nonprofit made the majority of the money off of it.
But do they have to pay for the wine?
It doesn't really reference if they pay for it or if they don't.
Back to that bill or not?
It's nothing about that bill, correct.
So, but they probably getting it for free and then they're going to sell it.
I would bet that the winery might do, and
might want to donate.
A great winery might be willing to, but one that's just getting started, there might be some type of a reimbursement.
I just wondered, since we passed that so far in advance.
Thank you. Move for final passage.
That is questions. Final passage of SB 285. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, body.
Thank the lady. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 86 ayes, 5 nays. SB 285 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 60 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 176 by Senator Orr, relating to education.
Chair recognizes the gentleman.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. Members, what this bill would do, this would require the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, acronym known as AIC, to collect and compile specific data and create an interactive online tool. This bill is known as the Student Right to Know Act. This would also require the AIC Commission to collaborate with the Workforce Division of the Department of Commerce and enter into a memorandum of understanding to share data and information as necessary to be able to compile this database. With that, I would move for passage of the bill or entertain questions.
That is questions. Final passage of SB 176. Clerk will unlock the machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 102 ayes, 0 nays. SB 176 has passed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker and members.
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 36 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 192 by Senator Albritton, relating to transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have an amendment. Senate Bill 192 pertains to industrial roadways. Industrial access roads constructed by public corporations and used for secured entry to industrial facilities.
Clerk, see the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill number 192 by Representative Givens.
Want me to explain the amendment? Okay, what the amendment does is simple. All it does is allows the corporation, the industry that has this road to take over the road, pay for the maintenance and the upkeep of this road. They can make it a private road and no longer be a cost to the county or the state.
You've heard the explanation of the amendment. Watch for the body's adoption of the amendment. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 101 ayes, 0 nays. The amendment has been adopted. Representative Given.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I move to pass the bill.
That is questions passage of SB 192. Clerk will unlock the machines and the members will vote.
Pringle.
Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 102 ayes, 0 nays. SB 192 has passed.
Thank you.
Thank the lady. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 64 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 263 by Senator Chasteen, relating to education.
Representative Collins.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. The Senate's made some changes to the Accountability Act, some of the ones that we've actually already talked about in this body, changing the failing school designation to a priority, actually increasing the poverty level a family has to meet from 180% of poverty to 250, which would move it from a family of four that makes 75,000 would qualify. It increases the cap, but just by 10 million. And then if they meet their goal every 3 out of 4 years, it would increase it 10 more, but cap at 60. It increases, it doesn't use the failing school at all. It uses D's and F schools as priority schools. And so more children have access to it. Children with unique needs have access to it, and it expands the opportunity. And this time I move for final passage.
Chair recognizes the lady from Madison, Representative Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the lady yield?
Yes.
Would you go back to the level of income?
Poverty?
The income? Yes.
Right. Right now, the Accountability Act is set at 185% of poverty level, which is about $55,000 for a family of four. This would increase that to 250% of poverty, so that a family of about $75,000 for a family of four.
So that's on the low end, though, isn't it?
It's just for poverty students, everyone that gets this scholarship.
But no. I'm talking about the amount. You sure it's 75,000? That's the limit?
For a family of four, it would be 75,000.
So 250.
50% of poverty.
Okay. Well, I looked at something so presently it's not 30,000. It is not 30.
No. Presently it's 185%, and I think the difference, Representative Hall, would be on how many are in the family. So it would depend on how many children, how many adults, and that would all depend on what that allowance was. It's a formula that they use.
So when you look at that range, we're going from 185 to 270,000.
250,000.
So the 250 could be.
Not 1,000, 250%.
Right,
Sorry.
but it could be up to between 250 up to 300%, right?
It caps it at that is correct. It caps it. It was at 275 for the cap, and now it caps it at 350%.
Right. So that's why I'm saying. So here we're talking about probably more than 75, more than the amount. I think you were talking about more than the amount that you indicated. We're probably talking about like 100,000 or more, right?
They could get near. It would depend on how many children it would be. They would still be no more than 350% of poverty.
Right.
Yes.
But I'm saying in terms of the dollar amount, I'm talking about the dollar amount. So it could be.
I don't know exactly how much 350% of poverty, what the salary arrangements and for how many children. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I'm thinking it's at least 100,000 or more.
It could be. I mean, if it from 85 to 250 goes from 55,000 to 75,000, it's very possible that if you go all the way to 350% of poverty, it could.
Exactly.
That's very possible.
Right. Okay.
But that would also be a family of four in a D or F school.
But,
right.
I mean, I think if you look at that, you also see a family of four today. I mean, looking at doing okay, making that money, making that kind of money.
Right. I would potentially close to middle class anyway. But maybe both adults working, maybe doing all they can do. Right.
So I always have a little bad taste in my mouth about this bill.
I know.
If you recall, when this bill passed the first time, that I was on the committee, and that in the process of being on, I was listed on the committee, but I wasn't on the committee. That this bill ended up going into a back room and insisted on the committee. And then the sad part about it is the night that it passed the House, the governor signed it. I mean, 11 o'clock. We stayed here just thinking that the governor would not sign this bill. And he did. So, I just come with a little attitude about it. I tried to allow myself to not have an attitude about this bill, and I had some people to talk to me about it. And when they talked to me, I said, I might be able to do that. And I know some people that have benefited from taking advantage of this bill. But just thinking about it. Now, I do like the fact that we've gone from failing schools to priority schools. And I hope that in that process, I think Representative McCampbell would agree with this, that when we change in the name is fine, but if we keep the same process that we have presently as it relates to the work that's doing for failing school, if we are not doing anything to enhance and to make sure that school moves forward. Are you able to tell me what number of schools we have listed now as failing schools and the ones that...
Failing would be 79 schools. And using the new term of priority, which would be based on the report card DNF, which is not one test, it's several indicators, that would be 219 would qualify.
If we use 219 schools, we have 79 now. But if we go to priority, so what's the difference between the traits of a priority school versus a failing school?
The failing school is based on the bottom 6% of the ACAP test, and the school grades, that whether they're D, F, or A, or B, or C, it's based on all the indicators. If they have a graduation class, graduation, college and career ready, all the different things. If they don't have a graduation class, it's based on achievement, it's based on growth, it's based on attendance and English language learners.
And so as we look at those traits, then when we go to priority, are those same terms, those same traits?
They'll be based on DNF schools.
DNF schools. And if we're looking at DNF schools, what are the resources that are going to be provided to those schools?
I think that we saw the governor added some funding and all for what she was calling priority schools or turnaround schools. I hope that we'll see a lot more emphasis on that. In the Literacy Act and in the numeracy, we add regional coaches to those bottom performing schools. So I think you're seeing much more momentum and emphasis to make sure we are doing things that help turn those schools around, that we provide better and more professional development, that we try to make sure our teachers and our staff are prepared. I think you see that in the principal bill that we passed a few weeks ago, that we're trying to make sure the principal leadership and mentoring bill, because all of our strongest schools have a really strong principal in place.
But in that, so if we're going
But all of those are aimed at lifting our priority schools.
All right, so do you know how many, speaking of priority schools and looking at teachers, do you know how many of our schools have individuals that are in the classroom that are not certified for the particular area that they're teaching?
I don't know how many. I know that we've had several. I know that for the first time in a decade, that our highest needs were not math and science teachers after we passed the TEAMS Act.
Well, we just passed that.
But for the first time this year, those weren't our priority needs.
And then you know what?
We do need teachers, which is why we're trying to promote getting certified teachers.
Let me stop you right there. The reason is because of there's a group that was checking to see what our priorities were. I think it's called ACES. And if I recall, their report said that they really were not able to determine that. I don't know the teams, because we just passed teams last year, so 1 year, 2 years. So you're saying within 1 year, we have reached the level at which we are comfortable with?
I don't think we've reached the level. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for the first time since I've been here, those weren't our greatest needs.
And
we had other areas that had higher needs, which
So
I
it-
think is a good.
Well, I think it's good as well, but I would also say that the issue of science and math has been an issue of mine ever since I've been here. And the thing that we've never done is like the Science in Motion. We never fully funded that. So I would give a commendation as it relates to that. But I would tell you that as we look at this particular bill, that the challenges that I see for us is making sure that whoever the person is that stands in that classroom
Ladies' time has
in front of our
expired.
children should be qualified and certified to do the job.
Right. 350% is when they lose the scholarship, if their salary reaches that.
Chair recognizes the lady from Macon, Representative Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the young lady yield? What I'm concerned about, we have been doing this how many years now?
I think it passed in 12, maybe.
Was that long? Oh.
So maybe 10.
Do we have any data as to, how many kids are participating in the scholarship and where they're coming from?
Yes, they have a report that comes out annually about that, I believe.
Is it in that educational book, or where is it? Where could we find those figures?
I get that report because I chair policy. I'm sure I have one in my office. So
Okay, if we can I just want to see
would
who's
like it
all
to be available.
participating.
Yes.
If it's really in the areas where we really need the students,
right,
to deal with.
and I believe that it's really doing a good job in those areas. I think that's why we had so many of the different groups that work together on this legislation to support it. I mean, I think we included everybody in the conversation. So.
Okay, just trying to see and to see, like I say.
I'll look
if
for
it-
that
if
in
it
my
works,
office
then
and
we
let
can
you see it,
continue improving it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair thanks the lady. Question for the body now is final passage of SB 263. Clerk will unlock machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock machine. Recorded vote 75 ayes, 22 nays. SB 263 has passed. Clerk, call the next bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, body.
On page
Thank you, lady.
39, on page 39 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 258 with substitute by Senator Jones relating to water utilities.
Representative Chestnut, you recognize.
Yes. Thank you, Speaker. Hit your light, man. This is SB 258, and under this bill, it addresses existing law where now a nonprofit corporation that is not incorporated pursuant to Title 11 of the code that provides water services to the public may be audited one time by the Department of Examiners of Public Accounts. And this bill would specify that the law applies to a nonprofit corporation that provides water services to its members or to the public. So I would like to ask for adoption of the substitute before we move forward.
You have the explanation for your sub.
Yes, sir. So with the sub, we're just clarifying that under Title 11 of the code that the other water systems listed under Title 11 of the code would not be affected. Only those that fall under subsection B in the bill would actually fall under the province of this law.
You've heard the explanation of the sub. Chair recognizes the lady from Madison, Representative Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the gentleman, yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding. This is an impact on nonprofit waters? Are there systems that have a nonprofit water system?
Yes, ma'am. Let me go back. Do you have a copy of it?
I do, but it's back there. But I was trying to make sure that I was understanding what is the difference is that the corporation filed for nonprofit as opposed to profit. I thought all of them were profit. I mean, I know, you know.
Yeah, most of them are nonprofit. Most of them so typically like water systems, you'll have like a lot of these public water systems that be created, and under statute, just depends on the enabling law. So if they're created under a county, then like a rural water authority might be for the unincorporated areas, and then they'll be appointed by the county commission.
Right.
Then you might have one that's on the municipal level that would cover just the municipal limits, and those would be appointed by your city councils. And so but it depends on which type of enabling law there is, which will determine how that particular board is governed.
And so what are we trying to do here then?
So we're doing here is saying a one-time audit by the examiners if there's a suspicion of fraud.
So why would we only want one-time audit? Why wouldn't we want to audit them all? I mean, I don't understand that.
Well, because the examiners, they already deal with the school districts.
I understand.
And the county commission.
I understand.
And so this would, I mean, I don't know if they have the manpower to really be able to address it on a year to year. And then we try to allow a lot of these different boards to get their own private CPAs to perform it. So I think it might be, trying to avoid market interruption also.
So why wouldn't we, if we wanted to make sure that these boards are doing what they should be doing as a nonprofit, that would be part of the requirements. Nonprofit organizations, in order for them to continue to receive their 501c3 or whatever, the ones that I've been a part of, remember, they are expected and required to have an audit.
Yes, and so this is what happens, right? So if you have a system that's out there that's operating and they're not getting audits, what will happen is that when they attempt to, let's say ARPA funds or some funding that's out there, or a state revolving fund, when they try to borrow money, or on the private sector, when they try to borrow money, if they don't have an audit for the last couple of years, then what's going to happen is they're not going to be able to borrow money, which means that their system will end up probably eventually failing because they won't be able to get the maintenance, they won't be able to get the capital investment that they need to continue.
So you're saying, ordinarily, under normal circumstances, these boards are following the guidelines?
Let me say, it depends on an individual basis. I will say that that proper management dictates that they have these audits performed annually.
I just think it's interesting that you're only required, and you're saying it appears to look like it's only if it becomes suspicious, right? Or there's thoughts that they may be doing wrong, then you call in. But in the meantime, they can do whatever they want to and just roll along, and somebody decides that they are not following the guidelines.
Well, the problem is, though, if they do roll along and they don't do what they're supposed to do, they're going to have maintenance issues that at some point is going to dictate, because, water is a corrosive agent.
Oh, sure.
So water it's running through the lines. It's
I got you.
and you're gonna have consistently, especially with old pipe. So there's gonna be a lot of things that are gonna have to happen over time, and so the borrowing of money is gonna be predicated upon having audits in place, because nobody's going to lend you their hard-earned money. No rich guy in Florida is going to put up $1 million to invest in a municipal bond if
And
he's not
you know
gonna get a
what?
return on
And
his
I'm
investment.
glad you're the person that's carrying this bill, and that you make sense, and that you're. No, I'm serious. And because of the experience and understanding that, because to me it makes the bill to me doesn't seem to make any sense. But in the fact that you've explained that the situation, if you have a good water board, they're going to do the right thing, they're going to do the audits, they're going to prepare it. If they don't, eventually, they are going to get costs because something might happen. So even if the possibility of something happening, then that group, is this designed for a particular group of individuals?
For a certain section of water systems that those particular systems would be, let me find it here. So it's going to be nonprofit corporation organized under the laws of this state, pursuant to Title 11, which provides water service to its members or the public, may be audited by one time.
Yeah, that's the part that I just kind of doesn't make sense. It's audited in one time.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. The gentleman behind me obviously think I need to know something that I don't know, or I should stop asking questions, but that won't work. All right, well, I'll let you explain it. But anyway, it is very interesting to me that we would be doing a one-time, and you feel comfortable with that one time. You're comfortable with that process?
Yes, ma'am. I am.
Based on your experience in working and knowing.
I mean, in a perfect world, more than one would be good, but I do know there's a shortage of accountants and CPAs out there, and right now the private sector is hiring most of the folks that are coming out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And so the state is having a hard time being able to be, competitively pay what someone can make on the private sector. And so it creates a situation where we could be eventually overwhelm our examiners if we're not careful.
Now, you're a good representative, because what you've done, you've taken ownership as a state. You are assuming that the state has a big problem such as CPA. So in light of the fact that it has such a big problem, I'm going to give you a little slack and let you only do it one time if things happen to happen. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Now, what is
If there are no further questions, I'd like to move for final passage.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Montgomery, Representative Hassel. While he's making his way up here, I got two special guests of my own today. My twin grandsons, Tripp and Major Ledbetter, are here today with us. They helped make me the best backyard quarterback in Alabama, right, guys?
Yeah, they wouldn't be subject to our jurisdiction. Yeah, okay. Speaker, I just answered his question.
Question for the body now is final passage of SB 250. Oh, there's sub. I'm sorry. All right. So the question for the body is the passage of the sub. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 99 ayes, 0 nays. The sub has been adopted.
And if there are no further questions, I'd like to move for final passage.
That is the question's final passage of SB 258. Clerk will unlock the machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 100 ayes, 0 nays. SB 258 has passed. Before the clerk calls the next bill, I'd like to recognize a former member of ours on the floor, Matt Friday. Certainly good to have you with us, Matt. Thank you for being here. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 32 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 103 with substitute by Senator Orr relating to the Ethics Commission.
Representative Almond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is SB 103 relating to the Ethics Commission. And basically what the bill does is require the Ethics Commission to turn over exculpatory evidence once the case has, or the matter, has gone beyond the initial investigatory phase. And so all exculpatory evidence at that point would be turned over to the person accused, including the complainant's name. And there is a sub, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, you care to explain the sub?
The sub has a few technical amendments, but primarily the changes were to add in language to protect the Ethics Commission for turning over exculpatory evidence that might later be deemed to have been privileged information, perhaps by the Attorney General or the District Attorney. So it added language to protect them from that.
Yeah, you've heard the explanation of the sub. Question for the body now is passage of the sub. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 101 ayes, 0 nays. The sub has been adopted. Representative Almond.
And now I move for final passage.
That is question is final passage of SB 103. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 102 ayes, 0 nays. SB 103 has passed.
Thank you.
Thank the lady. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 47 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 76 by Senator Barfoot relating to the Alabama Forestry Commission.
Chairman Lovern, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is the companion to the House bill that we passed earlier, representing trying to find efficiencies and better pathways to support our forestry industry in the state through our Forestry Commission. There's no funding attached to it. It would just be setting up a regulations through the commission to try to find that efficiencies as we search to a funding source to address some of our infrastructure needs dealing with forestry. No other questions. I ask for final passage.
That is questions final passage of SB 76. Clerk will unlock the machines and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 100 ayes, 0 nays. SB 76 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members.
Mr. Clerk, let's call back up SB 56.
On page 17 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 56 with substitute by Senator Orr relating to education.
Chairman Baker, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill is a bill that would be for promoting student safety and also for employee safety. This would be relating to public K-12 schools. This requires the local boards of education to install, maintain, and operate video cameras in certain self-contained classrooms, providing special education services if the funding is available to do so. With that, then, I'll be glad to entertain any questions or move for final passage.
Yeah, I'm showing a sub.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for calling my attention. There is a sub. On the sub, it's just really not overly substantive with that. It did add in on this where it has in the event that the incident is, if there is alleged abuse, in addition to neglect, it does add on harassment or other inappropriate behavior.
Yeah, you've heard the explanation of the sub. Question for the body is passage of the sub. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 101 ayes, 0 nays. Sub has been adopted. Chairman Baker.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I move for, now that we've adopted the sub, then I move for final passage.
That is questions final passage of SB 56. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 103 ayes, 0 nays. SB 56 has passed. Clerk call SB 75 out of the basket. 175.
Message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, the Senate has non-concurred in the House amendment to Senate Bill number 175 and requests a committee on conference. And the Senate has appointed as committee on the part of the Senate, Senator Orr, Senator Chastain, and Senator Figures. Signed, Patrick Harris, Secretary.
Chairman Baker.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with that then, I do, I guess, accede or concur then for the conference committee.
You've heard the question from the gentleman and would like to accede to go to conference. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 93 ayes, 0 nays. SB 175 will go to conference.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
The conferees for SB 175 will be Chairman Baker, Collins, and Drummond.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk recognizes the gentleman from Mobile. Mr. Pro Tem.
Ladies and gentlemen, remember we have a party hosted by our speaker at 5 o'clock at the Activity Center in Dexter. And with that, I move the House stand in adjournment.
All in favor say aye. We are adjourned.